People who often engage in wilderness survival know that nothing beats the gifts of nature. Look at this woman just strolling on the beach and she finds 2 lost fish. Being kind-hearted, she worries they might get cold, so she cleans them and puts them in a pot to warm them up. Seeing the fish warm up, she's so moved that tears stream down her face. I have to say, free fish tastes the best. If she feels tired, she can lie on a leather recliner and have a cup of tea. Life is quite comfortable, and maybe this is the right way to enjoy solitary wilderness living. The competition has reached day 32, with only 5 contestants remain. Vic is so famished he's considering eating mice. He has no idea where they came from, but they've chewed holes in his clothes and gnawed on the wool inside. He's worried they'll bite him if they get too hungry. Fortunately, there's not much to eat inside, and his stomach is already growling. He needs to go outside to find food. It's been ages since he's had any meat, and he's feeling dizzy. With snow everywhere, Vic is being extra cautious to avoid falling. But despite his caution, he still twists his ankle and ends up crying out in pain. He thinks this beach is terrible and wishes he could move somewhere else. There's no time to complain, though. He needs to hurry and fish. In his current state, he can only cast his line from the shore, hoping a school of fish will pass by. For him, singing is the best way to release his emotions. I think Vic shouldn't be in a wilderness survival competition. He should switch to a singing contest. Maybe he'd be famous by now, but singing didn't attract any fish. Vic had gained weight before coming here, thinking he could lose 100 pounds without a problem. It's a good way to lose weight, but the extra weight is hard on his ankle. He'll need a thorough checkup at the hospital when he gets back. Vic fished until dark without catching anything, and with the weather getting colder, he wanted to ask the crew how many people were left. How could anyone endure more hunger than he has? He even has to get up at night to catch mice. This life is too hard to bear. How many days could you last? Just as Vic was about to fall asleep, the old mouse came back. He heard it gnawing but couldn't see where it was. He could only protect his clothes, not wanting to wake up to more holes. One day, he's going to smash it with a stick. On day 33, Clay's life was going quite well, except for the threat of bear attacks. He was very satisfied with his shelter, and the leftover meat and decorations made it feel like the right way to live in the wilderness. Clay thought just eating venison was boring, so he collected some berries and mushrooms to make his meals tastier. It would be great if he could catch a fish too. Ever since he hunted the deer, he hasn't caught any fish. If he could eat fish today, it would be wonderful. I think he should use some venison as bait to increase his chances. While fishing, Clay suddenly felt a chill and turned to see a grizzly bear. Luckily, it didn't come his way. If he didn't dislike bear meat, he would have charged at it. Since the bear walked away, Clay decided to keep fishing. He couldn't believe he could hunt a deer but not catch a single fish. No one expected the bear to come back, scaring Clay into keeping a close watch. What should you do if you encounter a grizzly bear? Naturally, climb a tree to hide. The issue was, the bear left and then came back. Clay felt it was toying with him. He lost interest in fishing as the tracks led to his shelter. Without a bow and arrow, he had to be cautious and move slowly. The numerous tracks suggested the bear often roamed here. Less than 50 meters from his shelter, the bear had stood there. He wasn't sure if it was waiting for him. Luckily, the berries were untouched. He needed to be more vigilant in the future. Next door, Teresa had it worse. Her burn from the fire hadn't healed, so she couldn't get too close to it. Unable to go into the water, she stayed in the shelter mending her clothes to keep the wind out. She had found a fishing line on the shore earlier and pinned her hopes on it. Unfortunately, the line was frozen, making it unlikely to catch any fish. She felt continuing like this wasn't a solution and really wanted to go home and rest. Teresa couldn't hold back her emotions and cried on the spot. After all, her efforts weren't paying off, and her body had reached its limit. It seemed she was ready to leave. The camera then showed Colt warming himself by the fire. He felt things were going okay. At least he could catch fish and enjoy mushroom soup. But to win the prize, Colt needed more food. He checked the fish trap, thinking a boat would be much better, allowing him to fish in deeper areas and get food more easily than the other contestants. But building a boat would take a lot of time and energy. The fish trap hadn't caught any fish, and something fell off. The line was stuck. Colt used all his strength to pull it up, trying many times without success. It seemed the fish trap was a bust, and he could only see if he could salvage the ropes. After half a day's work, he only managed to recover a third. He didn't have enough materials to make another trap. Discouraged, he just wanted to get back to shore and rest by the fire, knowing the coming days would be tougher. On day 34, Vic, frustrated with the mice, braided his beard to lift his spirits, planning to groom it properly once he left. His long beard kept him warm, eliminating the need for a scarf. He even styled it into pigtails, though it would be smoother with conditioner. What do you think of his look? At night, Vic's mind was consumed by thoughts of big mice. At the slightest sound, he was ready to take action. After days of waiting, he finally spotted a mouse. It escaped, chewed his shoelaces, and left droppings. Vic felt like he was losing his mind. Walking became harder, increasing his risk of falling. He regretted not burning everything sooner and suggested contestants should be allowed to bring a cat. On day 35, Ross had a rough night too. His stomach growled, and the temperature dropped. He wished he could stay in his sleeping bag all day. He doubted he'd catch any fish and hoped for another rabbit. New tracks, possibly from a bobcat, had ruined his traps. Bobcat had walked along his tracks. The worst part was, it had destroyed his traps, probably hunting rabbits. Without the bobcat's interference, he might have caught a rabbit. Ross felt incredibly unlucky. He didn't want to quit the challenge and hoped to hold on for a few more days. Besides the lack of food and hunger, he didn't know when it happened, but one of his toes was very painful and looked frostbitten. In such harsh weather, a little carelessness could lead to frostbite, and severe cases might require amputation. Ross was very worried about this and soaked his foot in hot water every few hours, hoping it would help. He couldn't believe that a grizzly bear in hunger hadn't defeated him, but frostbite might. Meanwhile, Clay had already processed the deer hide. With the nice weather, he planned to spread it out as a recliner. The finished product looked great. Sitting on it, drinking hot tea, and enjoying the sunshine, life was very comfortable. Clay didn't know how many contestants were left, but he was sure not many had hunted a deer. His only worry was the bears, which he had encountered several times. And they often wandered near his shelter. Having such a neighbor was worrisome. Just as he mentioned the bear, Clay saw it walking along the beach. He quickly went back to get his bow and arrow. The bear roamed here daily, and he suspected the crew had arranged it to make winning the prize harder. Clay was worried about his food supply when he heard a noise nearby. Suddenly, luckily, he was prepared, or the bear would have pounced on him. His small frame couldn't withstand a bear attack. He managed to drive the bear away, and it probably wouldn't come back soon. Such thrilling events should happen less often. I'm curious, knowing the danger, why did he follow it? Did Clay really intend to kill it? Reflecting on the experience, his heart was still pounding. He hoped no one would imitate him. Unless you're professionally trained, it's best to run away. Clay regretted not trying to shoot the bear. He might have gotten a lot of meat. Now, it was his turn to find. The bear was troublesome. He walked around calling out, afraid the bear might come back. After wandering outside, he returned to his shelter to chew on jerky. For him, this was wilderness survival. He wondered if the footage was good enough to show off later. Now that even a bear couldn't scare Clay, I don't know who could outlast him. On day 36, Teresa found a piece of cloth while packing, perfect for wiping the camera. Probably no contestant would notice such things. Compared to when she first arrived, she had lost a lot of weight. If she didn't get some food soon, she might be sent home for a feast. Teresa felt her wilderness survival skills were decent, just a bit unlucky. She went to the beach to check the fishing line, not expecting the water level to drop so much. She thought she'd go hungry again today, but there was a fish lying on the shore. Thanking nature's gift, it smelled fresh. If only there were more. Although it had eagle claw marks, who could refuse free food? Teresa's mood instantly improved. She suddenly understood why bears liked to roam the beach. They wanted free food too. She found another fish, a good-sized one. Luck is unpredictable. You can't say the crew placed it there. She quickly cleaned the fish, eager to eat. These two fish would provide a lot of energy, helping her last a few more days. Teresa usually didn't like fish, but here, it tasted delicious. She wished she could eat fish every day. Since she found fish today, Teresa is optimistic about finding more food in the future. She's unsure how many contestants remain, but the competition will intensify as winter approaches. Her plan is to eat well and rest, taking it one day at a time. On day 37, Ross felt severe discomfort in his toes. Even near the fire, he felt nothing, as if they were amputated. They looked like little grapes now, and continuing could be life-threatening. Ross hoped to push through, thinking warmth and movement might help. He still wanted to find some food, but the wild fruits nearby were covered in snow. He has a bit of leftover rabbit meat, but it's a distance from the shelter. Ross doesn't walk far before his heart starts pounding, and he feels short of breath, forcing him to stop and rest. His head feels like it's been hit, and he can't hear clearly or determine the right direction. Ross realizes his body can't take it anymore, and even getting back to the shelter is a challenge. The show's crew notices Ross hasn't responded for a while and rushes to check on him. They find him at the shelter, his vision blurred and looking extremely worn out. The doctor quickly examines him. After asking, they quickly examined him. The frostbite on his toes was severe. A few more days and amputation might have been necessary. Ross's body couldn't take it anymore, and he needed to leave the challenge immediately for the hospital. He hadn't expected frostbite and had to regretfully withdraw. With little body fat and minimal food intake, he had lost over 40 pounds. He might have lasted a few more weeks, but the showrunners forced him to leave. Though Ross knew he had to go, he wasn't mentally prepared and really wanted to push through a bit longer. For several days, the showrunners could only comfort Ross. After some discussions, he had no choice but to leave. He could barely walk, and lasting 37 days was quite an achievement. Ross felt a bit unlucky and would definitely try to last longer if given another chance. Considering how weak he had become, barely able to see, you can imagine how tough the environment was. If you were to participate in a wilderness survival challenge, how long do you think you could last?